If you love old-school thrillers that make your heart race without a single explosion, then Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder is your kind of film. Released in 1954, this tense masterpiece is not just a murder mystery, it's a slow-burn game of cat and mouse that unfolds almost entirely inside one London apartment. With an IMDb rating of 8.2, the movie remains a fan favorite for its sharp writing, stunning direction, and psychological depth. Hitchcock used silence, camera angles, and tiny gestures to build a sense of dread that still works today. But what happened behind the scenes was just as fascinating, and sometimes downright strange. So let's uncover 20 weird and surprising facts about Dial M for Murder. From 3D experiments gone wrong to tricks Hitchcock used to mess with his own cast. Fact 1. Hitchcock shot it in 3D, but hardly anyone saw it that way. Believe it or not, Dial M for Murder was filmed in 3D, even though most people only saw it in regular 2D. Warner Brothers wanted to ride the new 3D wave, and Hitchcock agreed, though he wasn't exactly thrilled about it. He used the technology not for cheap thrills, but to create depth, making the audience feel like they were trapped inside the same room as the characters. Hitchcock placed props, lamps, tables, and even the phone, carefully to emphasize this illusion of space, but by the time the movie was ready for release, Malus Malbi, Baksanovin, the 3D craze had already died out. Most theaters didn't have the equipment anymore, so the film played in standard 2D. Hitchcock laughed about it later, saying it was the least 3D movie ever made in 3D. Fact 2. The entire movie takes place in one apartment. Almost the entire story unfolds in one single room, the Wendis apartment. That might sound boring, but Hitchcock turned that limited space into a masterpiece of suspense. Every detail was planned, from how light fell across the furniture to where actors stood in relation to the camera. The walls even had movable panels, so the crew could subtly shift the set to make the room feel smaller and tighter as tension rose. Hitchcock wanted the audience to feel trapped, along with the characters. No escape, no fresh air, just anxiety building with every shot. This confined setup became one of his most genius storytelling choices, proving you don't need big sets to create big fear. Fact 3. Grace Kelly wore a simple dress for a very specific reason. Grace Kelly was already a rising star, and Hitchcock loved using her elegant presence to shape his stories visually. But in Dial M for Murder, he dressed her in plain, ordinary clothes, something that was shocking for audiences used to her glamour. In the early scenes, she wears soft, bright colors to symbolize innocence and stability. But as the story darkens, her wardrobe shifts to cooler, duller tones, reflecting Margot's fear and emotional collapse. Hitchcock believed color was as important as dialogue, and Kelly's fading palette quietly mirrors her character's downfall. Even her final outfit, a pale nightgown during the murder scene, was designed to make her look fragile and trapped, just like the character she played. Fact 4. The murder scene was rehearsed like a ballet. The most famous scene, when Margot is attacked, looks quick and shocking, but Hitchcock rehearsed it like a dance routine. Every movement, every grab, and every scream was timed to the second. Grace Kelly insisted on performing it herself, and Hitchcock made her repeat it dozens of times until her reactions felt completely real. The result? A scene that still makes people flinch today. The director's obsession with detail even extended to the scissors she uses for self-defense. He picked the prop himself after testing several pairs to see which would glint best in the light. Hitchcock once said, "If murder must happen, it should happen beautifully." Fact 5. The story came from a play that barely needed changing. Dial M for Murder began as a stage play by Frederick Knott, which was a surprise hit in London and New York. When Hitchcock bought the rights, he decided to keep most of the play's dialogue and structure exactly the same. That's why the movie feels so theatrical. It's built like a live performance, with long takes and careful blocking instead of quick edits. But Hitchcock's direction added something new: cinematic tension through camera angles and lighting. Even though the setting is static, he made the space feel alive, using subtle movements and close-ups to control the audience's heartbeat. It was proof that a great director doesn't need to change much to make something unforgettable. Fact 6. Hitchcock changed the script to make the murderer smarter. In Frederick Knott's original play, the character of Tony Wendis, the husband plotting his wife's murder, wasn't as clever or charming, but Hitchcock wanted him to feel dangerously intelligent, the kind of man who plans everything down to the last second. He worked closely with actor Ray Milland to make Tony's calmness almost unsettling. Instead of playing him as a typical villain, Milland turned him into a man who uses logic like a weapon. Hitchcock even tweaked small details in Tony's dialogue to make his manipulation seem smoother and more natural, almost like he's seducing the audience into siding with him. The director believed that a perfect murder could only come from a perfect mind, and Tony embodied that idea completely. Fact 7. Hitchcock's famous cameo is hidden in a photograph. Fans of Hitchcock know he loved making tiny cameos in his movies, usually walking past the camera or sitting in a crowd. But in Dial M for Murder, it's much trickier to spot him. He appears only once, and not in person, just in a photograph hanging on the wall. In that photo, Hitchcock is sitting among a group of college friends, a subtle Easter egg most people missed in theaters. This was his clever way of keeping his tradition alive without breaking the film's confined realism. Since the story never leaves the apartment, he couldn't stroll by in the background, so he found a creative loophole. It's a small moment, but pure Hitchcock genius. Fact 8. Grace Kelly's performance impressed real prosecutors. After the film's release, Grace Kelly's emotional realism in the courtroom scenes was praised by actual lawyers and judges. They said her reactions, quiet, confused, and terrified, looked exactly how real defendants behave when cornered. Hitchcock helped her achieve that realism by limiting rehearsals for certain emotional moments. He wanted her fear to feel raw, not practiced. Kelly later said she deliberately didn't memorize her courtroom gestures. She let them happen naturally so the tension would stay honest. Her subtle acting in this movie made Hollywood realize she wasn't just another glamorous actress. It's what led Hitchcock to cast her again in Rear Window and To Catch a Thief, cementing her as his favorite leading lady. Fact 9. The 3D version used an uncomfortable viewing trick. While most audiences saw the movie in 2D, the few who experienced it in 3D got something unique and slightly dizzying. Hitchcock used unusual depth tricks, like forcing the viewer's eye to focus on specific objects while everything else blurred out. He even angled the furniture unnaturally and layered props in odd ways to make the space feel unbalanced. Viewers at the time reported mild headaches because their brains couldn't quite adjust to the shifting depth. But that was the point. Hitchcock wanted them to feel off balance, mirroring the unease of the characters. It was psychological filmmaking disguised as a visual experiment. Fact 10. Hitchcock used real scissors for the murder scene. The famous moment when Grace Kelly stabs her attacker wasn't shot with fake props. The scissors were real and sharp. Hitchcock believed that using dull or rubber versions would ruin the realism of the performance. To keep it safe, they rehearsed the choreography hundreds of times until both Kelly and the stuntman could move precisely without risk. On the day of shooting, Hitchcock personally checked the angle of the blades under the camera lights. He once said, "Audiences don't scream for the fake, they scream for the real." That's exactly what he achieved. Even now, viewers flinch at that moment, proof of how effective Hitchcock's commitment to realism truly was. And if you think those details were wild, just wait, because the next 10 facts take us deeper into Hitchcock's mind, from sneaky symbolism to behind-the-scenes arguments that almost derailed the film. So stick around, and if you're loving this deep dive into classic cinema, make sure to subscribe. The next part will definitely surprise you. Fact 11. The lighting was designed to trap the characters. Emotionally, Hitchcock and cinematographer Robert Burks didn't just light the room for visibility. They designed it to reflect the story's emotional tension. In the beginning, the apartment is bright and evenly lit, symbolizing order and control. But as Tony's plan unravels, shadows begin to creep in. They gradually dimmed the lights and shifted angles so that darkness closed in on the actors' faces, especially Tony's. This wasn't just for mood. Hitchcock believed the lighting should evolve like a character itself. By the film's final act, the walls almost seem to swallow the characters, giving the audience a subconscious sense of suffocation. It's a technique few notice consciously, but one that makes the film's tension unforgettable. Fact 12. Hitchcock shot in real time to build psychological pressure. Unlike most thrillers that jump around with edits, Dial M for Murder was filmed to feel almost real time. Many scenes last several minutes without a single cut. Hitchcock wanted viewers to feel trapped in the moment, unable to escape or take a breath. This method was rare for the 1950s and incredibly demanding for the actors, who had to deliver long, flawless performances. It's similar to what he later attempted in Rope, 1948, where he also hid edits to make the story unfold continuously. The difference here is that Dial M for Murder uses this real-time feeling not for a stunt, but to mirror the ticking clock of Tony's perfect crime slowly falling apart. Fact 13. Ray Milland almost turned down the role of Tony Wendis. At first, Ray Milland didn't want to play Tony Wendis. He thought the character was too ordinary. Hitchcock convinced him by explaining that Tony's charm was exactly what made him terrifying. Milland finally agreed, but he still struggled with playing such a cold, calculating man. Hitchcock reportedly told him, "Don't act evil, think logic. Evil hides in logic." That single note changed Milland's approach completely. By the time filming ended, Milland had delivered one of his best performances, a villain who doesn't snarl or shout but smiles while planning murder. Critics later called his performance chilling in its civility, a perfect Hitchcock creation. Fact 14. Hitchcock used subtle camera tricks to manipulate the audience. Every movement of the camera in Dial M for Murder was intentional. In the early scenes, the camera sits high and distant, as if we're watching from a safe, godlike position. But as Tony's plan collapses, Hitchcock slowly lowers the camera until it's eye level or below, creating a feeling of entrapment. This shift makes viewers feel less like observers and more like participants in the growing chaos. It's such a quiet trick that most people never realize it's happening, yet it's one of the reasons the tension feels unbearable by the end. Hitchcock often said, "A camera must think like a person," and here, it thinks exactly like one trapped in the same room, panicking quietly as the truth unfolds. Fact 15. The film's premiere confused audiences because of 3D glasses. When Dial M for Murder premiered in a few theaters using 3D projection, the audience was asked to wear special polarized glasses. But since it was a dialogue-heavy thriller with almost no pop-out effects, many viewers took the glasses off halfway through. Projectionists panicked, thinking the movie wasn't working properly. Some theaters even stopped the screening to adjust focus or lighting. In reality, the movie was fine. It just wasn't the kind of 3D people expected. Hitchcock later joked, perhaps they should have handed out magnifying glasses instead. The irony? The movie ended up lasting far longer than the entire 3D trend it was meant to capitalize on. Fact 16. The movie was almost never released because of changing studio trends. When Hitchcock finished Dial M for Murder, Warner Brothers executives weren't sure what to do with it. The 3D trend was collapsing, and the studio feared audiences wouldn't pay to watch a talky thriller set in a single room. Executives pushed to delay its release, hoping interest in 3D might return. But Hitchcock refused. He insisted that great storytelling didn't need gimmicks, and he personally fought to get it into theaters in 1954. Ironically, it became one of the few 3D films that aged better in 2D. Critics praised its tension, calling it proof that words, not weapons, can make your palms sweat. The film's success showed Hollywood that thrillers could be just as gripping as any big-budget spectacle. Fact 17. Grace Kelly and Hitchcock's working relationship deepened here. Dial M for Murder marked the first collaboration between Hitchcock and Grace Kelly, and it immediately sparked one of cinema's most legendary partnerships. Hitchcock admired her calm elegance and quiet strength, qualities that made her perfect for his cool, complex heroines. He often called her a paradox of warmth and ice, meaning she could look angelic but express deep fear or guilt with just a glance. Kelly trusted Hitchcock completely, even when his direction was demanding. Their collaboration on this film went so smoothly that Hitchcock cast her again almost instantly in Rear Window and To Catch a Thief. He once told a reporter, "Grace isn't just a star. She's the frame that holds the picture together." Fact 18. Hitchcock secretly wanted the audience to sympathize with the killer. One of the strangest creative choices Hitchcock made was to direct the movie in a way that made viewers momentarily root for Tony Wendis, the murderer. He used pacing, logic, and tone to make Tony's plan feel almost clever, even admirable. During the first half of the movie, this psychological trick forces the audience to confront their own morality. Why are we secretly hoping his plan works? By the second half, Hitchcock flips that feeling completely, trapping viewers in guilt as Tony's manipulation starts to fall apart. It's one of his most subtle experiments in audience psychology, turning viewers into accomplices without them even realizing it. Fact 19. The famous key scene was rewritten on the spot. The entire movie's climax hinges on a single, simple object, a key. During production, Hitchcock realized that the original version of the scene lacked tension. So, right on set, he rewrote it entirely to make the exchange of the key a visual puzzle. He instructed the actors to move slowly, keeping the audience's eyes fixed on every motion. The moment when Tony picks up the wrong key is so quiet, yet so powerful, that it feels like time stops. Crew members later said that Hitchcock spent an entire afternoon rehearsing that single moment, just to get the exact right pause, the right breath, and the perfect amount of silence. That's how much power he believed small details could hold. Fact 20. Hitchcock considered Dial M for Murder his tidy experiment. In later interviews, Hitchcock referred to this film as his tidy experiment, a phrase he used proudly. He meant that the movie was a controlled, self-contained test of suspense. No big sets, no grand action, no outdoor shots, just pure storytelling inside a box. It was a director testing how much tension he could build with only dialogue, framing, and movement. When critics asked why he never made another film quite like it, Hitchcock said, "Because it worked too well." I already proved the point today. Dial M for Murder is still studied in film schools as one of the greatest examples of psychological control through filmmaking. Every shot, every breath, every silence perfectly in place. So there you have it, 20 weird, fascinating, and sometimes chilling facts about Dial M for Murder. From real scissors and 3D headaches to Grace Kelly's fearless performance, this film remains a masterclass in how less can truly be more. It's a story of elegance, fear, and control, crafted by a director who knew exactly how to make you squirm without ever leaving your seat. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hitchcock's genius, don't forget to subscribe, because the next classic we're exploring might just change how you see movies forever.